Hi, everybody. It is that special night that I look forward to each and every month in helping us all unlock our millionaire mindset. And, I was just saying prior to starting this call that I think I learn more by doing this than anything else, because if you really look at all the masters who coach and teach, they all have a common denominator. They all say you learn more by doing, not just being an outside observer. So I just so appreciate all of you like Mark and Donna and Eileen and Dr. Santry who have stepped up to the plate and become the up-and-coming leaders in participating, because when you participate, your growth accelerates. And why do we do these calls? Why do we want to help you develop a millionaire mindset? And I've said it before, God did not make junk. We all start out in a specific place, and as we get older, sometimes things get in the way of our dreams. And we must get back to where we want to be, not necessarily where we have to be. So our focus and our goal in Zango University, as our mission statement says, one by one, no one left behind. And if you work on yourself, whether it takes you a year or 3 years or 7 years, you will attain your goals. And part of this mindset, this millionaire mindset, is what we think is what we are. I mean, that is the reality. And our thoughts determine what we believe. And it's amazing how many people that I speak with who don't realize what comes out of their mouth reflects on where they are and where they believe they should be. And I remember when I met Esther Hicks, who's part of The Secret and the Teachings of Abraham, many, many years ago. Her teachings are really an offshoot of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Now, I have the book on my desk. Let me look really closely on the copyright of this brown and tattered and wrinkled book. 1937 is when this book was copyrighted. Think about it. Even before I was born, and I thought I was pretty ancient. But the point is that so many decades ago, he nailed it, and that book has created more millionaires than any other book published. So if you have not read it or reread it, it's time to dust it off or download an ebook. But what he has stated in the book is how you feel that helps to determine where you are. And how you feel not only influences how you act, but also influences your mindset, whether it be positive or negative. And I remember when we were going through our really, really, really tough times and our downward spiral, I actually saw this quote that I have lived by for almost 20 years. And hopefully you've got a pen and paper and you are going to write it down, and you have a spiral notebook that you really need to use. I mean, I have 5 on my desk, and one is for my daily scheduling, another is what I would put in this pearls or quotes to remember, etc. But here it is. You are where your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be. You are where your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be. And I really wish that we could do these mindset calls every week, but we just can't. I mean, there's just too much other stuff going on with family, with commitments to church or your religion, and God forbid some of you have to work a job. I don't know how you juggle it all, but you manage to do it all. So tonight, our first session is about the super conscious mind. And this is so powerful. And a good friend of mine, Mark Barman, is going to be the one to share his thoughts and his impressions of these lessons of Brian Tracy and the superconscious mind. Now, let me just tell you a little bit about Mark. And he grew up in the Midwest, went to college at MIT, and graduated from Stanford. So we're talking about a really, really, really smart young man. He worked in Silicon Valley and developed software most of his career. Moved to Northern California, and his first experience in network marketing was actually in the 90s, and he is a tough one. He actually built a successful organization in the Big A, Amway. Now, I never did Amway. It was one of them that I missed, and I'm almost sorry I missed it because their training was incredible. You couldn't make any money in most cases, but the training was terrific. But he joined Zango several years after moving to Sacramento. He's got 2 kids, a dog, and he's an empty nester now, and he lives in Carmichael. And he's bounced back from the crash of 2008, which most of us are in the process of doing. And Zango, of course, is a big part of his future. So, Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you now so you can start discussing Brian Tracy's, and these are the last 2 lessons that we're going to do for 2014 before we start the new Mastery Success Training starting in January. So, Mark, are you with us?
I'm here, Sandy. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. And thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share your insight with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Well, it's really a pleasure. This material is so exciting. Like you say, I learn every time I look at it. So, in the superconscious mind, we've already had a seminar on the first part of this, and so we're picking up here in the second half of Brian's teaching. And so he talks about the properties of the superconscious mind and how it makes all your words and actions and their effects fit a pattern that's consistent with your self-concept and your dominant goals. He says you can be in a conversation and have the impulse to say something, and lo and behold, it'll be exactly the right thing. And sometimes you'll have the impulse to say nothing, and that's exactly the right thing to do too. Or sometimes you're trying to get a word in edgewise and you can't, and you realize, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be saying something here. So you should trust your intuition, because your intuition is going to be suggesting things directly from your superconscious mind. An example, if you're driving and you get an impulse to turn here, then turn. I have a story way back before smartphones and GPSs. I was going to a Big A house meeting, and it had to pass through a downtown area. It was divided diagonally by the Union Pacific main line. I knew what road I was coming into town on and what road I had to be exiting to the eastbound, but I had no idea how to get from one to the other or where to cross the railroad tracks. So I wound up turning. Sorry for the delay here. My screensaver just took his screen away. Okay. I had no idea how to get to where I was going, so I just turned things over to the universe and decided whenever I felt the impulse I was going to turn. And I followed those impulses, found a road that tunneled under the railroad tracks, and a few turns later I was on my targeted exit street and on my way to the house meeting. Brian talks about as a young adult how Earl Nightingale was looking for what he should do in life, and he stopped in a bookstore in Phoenix, Arizona. He saw a used copy of Think and Grow Rich. He thought, what a stupid title for a book, but the impulse struck him to pick it up and buy it, and reading it totally changed his life and through him the lives of thousands of others. Now there's a thing that happens here called serendipity, and that is the process of making happy discoveries. Brian's examples are, well, there's a farm and a terrible flood comes and it washes away half the farm. Everybody thinks it's a disaster, but the farmer finds out that the flood has, by washing away half the farm, has exposed jewels that were previously buried, and so he's far better off than he was before. Another example, maybe you go to a restaurant you've been looking forward to, and they've lost your dinner reservation, but because you have to go eat at another place, you find a place that proves to be much better than the first restaurant. So it was a serendipity benefit. The key to recognizing these is that the only people who make happy discoveries are the people who are looking for something, happiness, success, or goals. They're looking for something, and they wind up making these happy discoveries, as in the Earl Nightingale story with the book above. The next feature Brian talks about is synchronicity. And this is when two or three unrelated events happen coincidentally to make achieving some goal possible. The one thing that binds them together is that goal. For example, Brian tells about U.S. automakers who suddenly began experiencing increased sales a couple years ago because the earthquake and tsunami in Japan led Japanese automakers to experience severe part shortages and production delays. In my own case, there was a time back in the 80s when my wife and I were wishing we could travel more, kind of like, what we had done before kids. And one day at work, my phone rang and a friend's voice asked, "How would you like to live in Israel for 6 months?" Well, a major customer over there was installing and customizing a manufacturing management software system that I had helped develop. One of our applications engineers was over there for a year helping out install the product, but a family emergency required him to immediately return to Minnesota. So after an exploratory phone call overseas, we discovered there was mutual interest. They offered to bring me and my family there for 6 months and asked, "Can you be here in 2 weeks?" I answered, "Well, give me 3. We saw 3 hurdles in getting there. My wife was president of a local chapter of a charitable organization. When the other board members heard about the opportunity, they said, "You can't possibly pass this up. We'll cover for you." The second thing, our kids were in school. Well, the company offered to pay for our kids to attend school over there. And then the third issue, somebody needed to look after our house. We didn't want it to sit vacant for 6 months. However, renting it out would require substantial preparation. All of our belongings, except the furniture, would have to be stored away. And besides, it's hard to trust that some strangers will care responsibly for the place. Well, 2 days after the phone call, a coworker told our team that he wasn't happy with the house he'd been renting and asked everybody to keep their eyes out for any properties that were becoming available. This was a guy I respected and totally trusted. My wife totally agreed. We offered him a rent-free stay if he would move in and look after the place while we were gone. Then for icing on the cake, the company offered to pay for a gardener in our absence. It was just perfect. So these synchronicity events are organized by their meaning towards realizing your goal. And the more you watch for synchronicity to occur, the more synchronicity you will observe happening. Next slide. The superconscious mind contains all the monitor circuits you need for pre-programming it. Your program for your subconscious and superconscious minds are done through positive commands. They only respond to positive commands because of the need for visualization. It's impossible to visualize a negative command. Example, don't trip versus lift your feet. A positive example, remember to take your keys with you tonight. Here are some examples of how people program their minds. The first thing Brian brought up, I just love this. He brought up the parking space genie. This is something that we had looked at when we studied Aston and Given a month ago. And both Sandi and I have experienced using the parking genie to find parking spaces when we were going. We're going to some place, and the affirmation is, "I'm going to find a parking place up front when I get there." It works. It works so often. It's worked for me. It's worked for Sandi. And here, Brian Tracy's talking about how it worked exactly for him, too. It was just a kick to hear him talk about that. The second example he gave was waking up with your internal alarm clock, that you can program your mind to wake you up at a particular time. And you'll wake up at that time. I've done that in the past. Brian reports using that even crossing 12 time zones to wake up when he needed to wake up. He gave the example, I don't get sick. You know, he says colds and flus aren't caused by viruses or anything else anyway. They're caused by fatigue, by stress, and by other things. But when he programmed himself with a positive command, I don't get sick, he doesn't get sick anymore. That happens to me ever since I started drinking Zango juice and taking 365. I don't get sick anymore, and that's my affirmation. Oh, I may fight something off for a day or two, but I don't get sick anymore. The favorite example of mine Brian offered is I don't get speeding tickets anymore. His intuition now tells him when he needs to slow down because there's a police car over the horizon. He needs to watch out for it. So ways of activating the superconscious mind. How do you get the superconscious mind to work for you? The master method of doing this is solitude. This is the most powerful way to tune into your superconscious mind. You go into silence for 30 to 60 minutes. Now you'll get all of these impulses to get up and go do something else. Ignore them. This will be hard at first. It'll feel unnatural. It'll feel silly. You'll feel foolish. Do it anyway. Be non-directed. Focus on your breathing. Brian says after 25 to 30 minutes or so, a great peace will settle in. This is the place you want to be at. He also says, sit during that time with your eyes open because it's not meditation. But then he tells the story of Thomas Edison, who would sit with his eyes closed whenever he got stuck on a problem. So the main point is once that peace settles in, then ideas will come to you. They'll pop into your head. You should be ready to write them down so you can focus on them later. Brian tells us that some of these ideas will save you years of work. He adds you'll also get ideas from meditation. Whenever you let your mind go quiet, you'll get ideas. So apparently eyes open to closed, or meditation or not, don't really matter. But once your mind gets to that quiet point, ideas are going to pop in. An alternative method. You can define your goal. You can gather info about the issue. You can concentrate single-mindedly about the issue. And when you get blocked, release your mind from this task and go to work on something else. While you're busy and your mind is busy elsewhere, ideas about the issue will pop into your head. Write them down. Getting the solution, how do you get the solution? You know from your intuition is one way. That small voice from within tells you. The solution suddenly just pops into your thought. Small voice is sometimes so loud that it drowns out everything else. Brian gave the example of Archimedes and Eureka discovering how to solve the issue of knowing what a crown is made of. That famous story about him being in the bath and when he discovered the answer, shouting Eureka and running naked through the street. Second way is some chance encounters. You're going through life, you meet somebody, someone says something that triggers the answer for you, or someone actually gives you the answer you've been looking for. Or maybe you see something and that triggers the answer in your mind. Third way is through unexpected events. Maybe an unexpected success or failure. Maybe a large success or a large failure. Peter Drucker in his book, The Unexpected Success, writes of experiencing a success so far beyond what your expectations were that it triggers whole new ideas about what is really taking place. Similarly, a massive failure may force you to realize ideas that you would have never thought of otherwise. And how can you tell if it's a superconscious solution? The answer will be 100% complete, and it'll be simple. You'll know, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. It'll be a blinding flash of the obvious to you because everything else has been lined up totally behind it. You'll receive a burst of happiness that your problem is solved and well-being. You'll be really excited. Now, sometimes this happens in the middle of the night, so write it down. A lot of people go to bed with a pen and a pad right on their nightstand. So the big aha moment for me was looking at the law of superconscious activity. Any thought, plan, or goal held continuously in the conscious must be brought into reality by the subconscious mind. Okay, this is the next slide, Sandi, if you're there. There we go. This was great to read. This was a total independent confirmation of what we studied in Ask and It Is Given last month. It's the law of attraction at work. Right? What we learned was when you hold a thought in your mind for even 17 seconds, that thought begins to attract similar thoughts to it. And so this reality begins to build. And the longer you hold the conscious thought continuously in your mind, the closer to the reality you're going to, closer to having it brought into reality you're going to have. So the superconscious mind, in summary, works totally with a positive attitude. When you're completely positive about yourself and your future, and you have very clear written goals and priorities, you'll be able to tap into the greatest power in the universe. There we are. Sandi, thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. And I know that, some people may wrongly assume because Eddie and I are 500Ks that somehow we have tapped into the superconscious, and the truth is we haven't, not to the extent that Brian teaches. So I so love going through the lessons, but then having people like you, Mark, and Donna, and Dr. Santry, and everyone else reaffirming all of it, because I so believe in all of this because I've experienced it, the last 20 years, like you referred to in Esther Hicks' book, Ask and It Is Given. That 17 seconds is just the beginning. And if you haven't read Ask and It Is Given, or you haven't gone through our archives of that, to me that's fundamental. That's absolutely fundamental. And I know when Brian talked about the solitude, the 30 minutes minimum, I really have a hard time with that. I mean, for me to sit still in utter silence is quite a challenge. So this month I've been trying to work on it, and it's a labor of love. It's obviously going to continue, never-ending improvement. So we all need to work on ourselves and identify where it is we need to improve. And, of course, tying this to your skills. And where are you weak? Are you weak in finding people to talk to? Are you weak in knowing what to say? Are you weak in the invitation? Are you weak in confirming the three-way with an upline partner? All of that plays into the final denomination of where you are in your Zango business. And thanks, Mark, so much for being a part of, I know all of us on the call listening, this is our passion as well for never-ending improvement and really understanding how it is possible to take from where we are to where we want to be, whether it's going to take a year or 3 years or 5 years or beyond. So thank you for sharing so much. Now, the second lesson, and the reason we're doing this, double whammy, if you will, is because we want to end 2014 with all of these lessons already done, so that in a couple weeks when the new year begins, it's a whole new series with the mastery in success management. And now it's my delight and pleasure to introduce Donna Mastrangelo. For those of you who are brand new and do not know who Donna is, she's a good friend from Chile, Philly right now. And she's just an amazing young woman, always taking charge. Her favorite quotes are, "All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them." And she didn't make that up. That was actually Walt Disney. And the other quote is, "What would you accomplish today if you knew you could not fail?" Now, Donna's unique. She's an undergrad at St. Joe's University, and got scholarship. You ready for this? At the University of Pennsylvania. I mean, I can't believe that she's that smart to get a scholarship. And, of course, one of the elders in her class of teeny boppers, so she is on a lifelong journey of never-ending improvement, married to her sweetheart Joe for over 45 years, and they have 3 sons and a beautiful grandchild as well. And she's been in sales and marketing her entire career. And in 1973, I actually went into business with a couple business partners and did very, very well, sold the business. And unlike us who didn't get paid, she did. And now she is in her own home-based business with Zango. And I'm just delighted and to introduce Donna, whose message is going to summarize time management. And you know, it's interesting. There's one thing everyone on this planet has in common: 24 hours in a day. Nobody has more, nobody has less. And my father used to have a saying, ask a busy person to find time to do something, and they will always make the time. And Donna did just that, you know, juggling school and exams. She's got finals. But she made time to be with us this evening to discuss the time management strategies with Brian Tracy. Over to you, Donna.
Thanks so much, Sandi. I always feel so pumped up after you introduce me. It's great. Thank you very much. And I appreciate having the opportunity to share this with everybody. To me, it's an honor. So, time management strategies from Brian Tracy. First off, time management is very important because sometimes one little idea on how you use your time will make a huge difference. And the starting point, according to Brian, is clarity. Set very specific goals. The number one reason that people waste their time is that they don't have goals. So it's easy for them to do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, get distracted, check your email, talk to friends. However, when you have goals, they keep you focused. So the question is, what are you trying to do? What are your ultimate goals? If you're completely successful, what would you accomplish each part of your life? How are you trying to do it? Especially when you experience any kind of frustration and you're not making progress. Always ask yourself, could there be a better way? Maybe the way I'm trying to do this isn't the how. It isn't working. So is there a better way? You're going to find that 70% of the time, excuse me, that the way you're trying to accomplish something won't work. According to American Management Society, 7% of the decisions we make in business turn out to be wrong in as far as time goes. So when you find yourself in this situation, stop the clock and step back and ask, what am I trying to do? How am I trying to do it? And could there be a better way? And most importantly, be willing to admit you could be wrong. One of the other greatest time management tools is to remove your ego from the equation and be willing to admit, I could be wrong. If you're open to that possibility that your current way isn't working, suddenly you're open to all kinds of possibilities. So don't try to hammer a square peg into a round hole. Be open to new ideas. Always define your goals in terms of outputs, results. What are the results are you looking for? One of the great principles of success is to be clear about your goals and be flexible about the way of achieving it. Recognize you will probably achieve your goal in a manner different from what you started. Things are changing so rapidly in our world today. The most interesting quality you'll need for success in the 21st century is the quality of flexibility. Brian tells the story of Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And in order for you to be great, there's three things that must exist. You have to do something for which you have a passion. It has to be something that you can be excellent, and excellent means the top 10%, and it must be profitable. And what he did was he drew a circle for each one of the three of them. And the very center point is what you're going to be aiming at. That's your sweet spot. You can do many things to reach your goal, and what you're doing now may not be right for you. You have the passion, and you can be excellent at it, but you can't make money at it. Sometimes it takes a lot of courage, honesty, and flexibility to change. So allocate your tasks based on hourly rate. This is one of the most important skills to learn. Think about how much you earn in an hour, not a month or a year. If you think about your income on a monthly basis, then you can afford to waste a day or two. The average person in America wastes 50% of working time every day. The top 10% of the people always think in terms of their hourly rate. So you take your income and you divide it by 2,000, which is about the average number of hours an entrepreneur works. And if you want to make $50,000 a year, that means you have to make $25,000 every hour. Or I'm sorry, $25 every hour. So if you want to earn 50, you have to make sure that every hour counts. You can't get in what you don't put in. And one of the problems with our economy, Brian was saying, is that, and you can see it all around you, there's an enormous number of people out there wasting time and expecting to be paid. They lose their jobs, they could be out of work 6 months, a year, 2 years. Danger is in our economy, they may never work again. So no intelligent person is going to hire someone that contributes less than what they cost. They're no longer worth their hourly worth. Next slide, Sandy. So he said, refuse to do anything that doesn't pay your hourly rate. And the best time management strategy is the word no. If it's not the highest and best use of your time, refuse to do it. If someone asks, do you have a few minutes to chat? Say no. Not right now. You have to get back to work. Why don't you go down the hall and talk to him and ruin his career? In other words, just say no at work when people want you to do things. You'll find that most people that are going nowhere with their lives want company. The greatest time waster in work is other people wasting your time. You tend to get into the habit of wasting time with idle chat. The rule is if you spend more than 10% of your time in social interaction at work, then you're out of control with your time. You have to be responsible for yourself. Zig Ziglar said, if you are hard on yourself, life will be easy on you. But if you're easy on yourself, life will be hard on you. Learn to say no to anything that is not a good use of your time. And then he was explaining the law of three. There are only 3 things you could do in work that count for 90% of your value. And the way you find those 3 things, you make a list of things you do in the course of a day, a week, or a month, and you'll find that you do 20 or 30 things. Go over the list and ask if you could do only one thing all day long. Which activity contributes the greatest value to your work, the greatest value to yourself, the greatest value to your life? And it should pop off the page. Circle it. Go back to the list and ask if you could do only 2 things all day long. Which would be number 2? Again, circle it. Same thing with number 3. Then copy all 3 to another piece of paper. If you look at that and figure out if I did nothing else but this all day long, I could contribute more value to my company than anything else I do. Everything else is in the 10%. These 3 things make up 90% of your value. If you don't know what they are, you're in danger of wasting your career. The rule is do fewer things, but do more important things. Do them more often and get better at them. The principle doubles the income of everyone that applies it. They become more productive overnight and contribute more value to their company. It's really a very simple way to simplify your life. And here's the next time management strategy. Make a list before you begin, preferably the night before, and make a not-to-do list too. Remember the dangers of the comfort zone. Is we get into the habit of doing things that we're comfortable with. Sometimes when you're promoted, we still keep doing things the old way that we're not supposed to be doing anymore. Peter Drucker said the number 1 reason for failure in management is that people fail to adapt to the responsibilities of a new job and keep going back to doing what they were doing before rather than doing the new, more valuable tasks that they're responsible for today. He tells his clients that once they reach a certain level, they need a personal assistant, and everybody tells them, I can't afford it. But they can do all the $10 work for free to free them up to do $50 work. People that do this end up earning more because they're not wasting their time on the $10 work. He tells a story about mowing his lawn, and this is really cute. He always spent 3 or 4 hours on a Saturday on this task, and one Saturday he had a speaking engagement. When he got home, the lawn was already mowed. His wife had hired the boy down the street to mow the lawn for $6, and she told Brian he can't afford to mow his own lawn anymore. He made too much money, and his time was too valuable. Of course, she was right. Remember, the most important determinant of value is consequences. Something is important to the degree that it has serious potential consequences. Something is unimportant to the degree that it has no or low potential consequences. Always ask yourself before you do or not do something, what are the consequences of doing this or not doing it? If the consequences are low, then it's not an important task. The reason people fail is because they spend most of their time doing things with no consequences, no value at all in the great scheme of things. Surfing the internet, playing their games. You could play games all day long, become the very best player on earth, but it would have zero effect on the quality of your life, and it would have actually a negative effect. One of the great disciplines of all is keep asking yourself, what are the consequences? He suggests using the ABC method. A is a must-do. It has serious consequences if you don't do it. Your boss will be mad, your customers will be unhappy, something you must do, and it's a top priority. B are should-dos. It has mild consequences. Return a phone call, check your email, something that has mild consequences whether you do it or not. C equals nice to do. It has no consequences. Go down the hall to talk to a friend, see what's for sale at the store, read the paper. The rule is never do B when there's an A left undone, and never do C when there's a B left undone. If you follow this, you'll find that most of your C activities will just die away because they're completely unimportant to your life. D is delegate, something you should delegate, everything possible that can be done by someone else, so you can do the 3 things you do really well and that have a consequence to your life. An easy example is having food delivered for dinner so you don't have to cook. I really like that one. Gardening, laundry, cleaning, mowing the lawn. E, eliminate all non-essential uses of time. Keep asking if this is something of value in the past but has no value for your life now. This takes courage. Sometimes you just have to give it up so that you have face-to-face time with the important people in your life. The next strategy is set priorities continually on your task. Use the 80-20 rule. 20% of your activities account for 80% of value. If you make a list of 10 things that you do, and you'll find that 2 of the things you do account for 80% of the value. Rule to keep in mind, resist the temptation to clear up small things first. Small things are like rabbits, they multiply, and boy do I get caught in that all the time. And never work without a list the night before and start working on that list in the morning. Most important things first. 10 goals every day. They may change, some will drop off, some will come back on. And after a while, the most important goal will be on the list every day, and the description of them will get clearer and clearer. Daily goal setting is the most powerful thing you can do. A big question to ask yourself all the time is, why are you on the payroll? Get back to the big 3. What do you do to make the most contribution to the company? Brian suggests that you make your list and have your boss look it over and put it in his priority, and then, of course, always work on your boss's top priorities. What can you do, and only you do, which, if done well, will make a real difference? This is one of the most important time management questions in the world. It applies to work, your private life, even exercise, something that you can do and only you can do. And if you do them and do them well, it makes an extraordinary difference in your life. And if you don't do them, no one else can do it for you. And exercise is a great example of that. What is the most valuable use of your time right now? This is the most important question. Time management is the ability to control the sequence of events. That's Stephen Covey's idea. What you do first, second, third, and not at all, all of life management will be determined by the sequence of events that you choose to do. Get up at 5 a.m. or sleep in. Simple example, don't turn the TV on when you get home at night. Instead, talk to the family, talk to the people that are there, rebuild a relationship. As soon as the TV goes on, all communication stops. Single-handling. Once you begin your most important task, work on it until it's 100% complete. And choose the sequence of events. What is the most important thing I could be doing right now, and start on that and work on it until it's complete. If you can develop this habit, you'll double or triple your productivity and output. When you complete major tasks, you get an endorphin rush and feel like a winner. Your self-esteem goes up, you're happier, you have more creativity. It's like a natural high, a positive addiction by starting and completing the most important task. Work all the time you work. Put your head down and work. Focus. Don't play. Work like you have a gun on to your head. You could increase your productivity by as much as 500% according to statistics. And multitasking could be a huge waste of time. Quality of work deteriorates because you're not focusing. Practice the 40-plus formula for success. That means every hour over 40 is an investment in your future. The highest paid people work an average of 59 or 60 hours. And since they're doing work they enjoy and doing it well, they don't even notice it. 6 10-hour days. Start at 8, finish at 6. Make the use of every minute. Start earlier, work harder, stay later. Simple formula. 2 extra hours a day make a huge difference. You would beat traffic on the way in and on the way home, and you could double your productivity. And develop a sense of urgency, a bias for action. Do it now. Back to work, back to work. Sense of urgency and focus. And he kept doing that. Force yourself and keep saying it to yourself, and it'll become a habit. Peter Drucker said, you can't manage time, you can only manage yourself. Time management is really personal management. Time management is not a peripheral task. Time management is the center of your life, and everything else revolves around it. The use of your time determines the entire quality of your life. People asked Brian how he gets so much done, and he kind of shrugged his shoulders. He said, time management. Choose a sequence of events, set priorities, only do a task, and get started and keep working until it's done. All things that everybody can learn. Work is only fun when you are getting a lot done. You feel really good about yourself. Your self-esteem goes up. Esteem of other people goes up. Your pride goes up. Your confidence goes up. Your sense of personal power goes up. When you are a productive person and working all the time, you are at work. Your goal is to be known as the hardest working person in the industry. Sandi, I think you got that one. And if you're not, then tell yourself, back to work, back to work, back to work. And with that, I'll pass it back to Sandi.
Unmuting the lines. Donna, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, my goodness. You know, it's interesting. This was one of, I mean, they're all special lessons, but this one brings back memories because when I was running my medical and surgical supply business, I was probably working 100 hours a week or more. I mean, 7 days a week. It was just insane. And I actually went to Temple University and paid to take a course in time management. And this lesson brought back so many memories. They actually had us do a log sheet, almost like an attorney or an accountant or somebody who bills for services by time with blocks of time. They had us log what we did every 15 minutes. So we had to log the interruptions, people walking into my office, asking questions. So this, if we can manage time, it's amazing how much more productive that we can become. And I just wanted to go over something you mentioned, Donna, and of course Brian talked about this, having, and Mark did as well, doing a to-do list before you go to bed at night. Before you go to bed at night. So when your feet hit the floor in the morning, you know exactly what you have to do. Even if it means getting up 15 minutes earlier or 30 minutes earlier if you want to, because, with the tax advantages of a home-based business, if you wake up in the morning 15 minutes earlier and you turn on your computer and you go to your emails, you're pretty darn sure you're going to find an email or two from Sandi Cohen. So technically, you are at work with your own business. So that time now starts the clock with the legitimate hours you're clocking for your home-based business. So when, and Mark mentioned about keeping a tablet on your nightstand, they're all over the house. When we travel a lot, the hotels always give you pen and tablets. I've got pen and tablets from every hotel that we've ever been at, and they're in the bathrooms, they're in the kitchen, they're on the nightstand, where I am, I can write myself a note. But it's the end of this year, and I went to Walmart, when was it, last week? Before we went on the cruise, so maybe 2 weeks ago, and I bought a half a dozen new spiral notebooks. Now, we're talking about the days before I knew how to use a computer, so we're talking, 25, 30 years ago. I built a multi-million-dollar medical and surgical supply business with spiral notebooks, not realizing that people like Brian Tracy are still talking about using that today. Now, of course, I use a database management system and a black box that Ray Herron has taught, but I still use the spiral notebooks. So I've got several for several different purposes. But I think when Donna was reiterating the A to E, A, B, C, D, E priorities, that for me, I think way back 25, 30 years ago when I took that course at Temple, was the hardest thing for me to do was to do the most difficult, challenging, frustrating tasks first. And see if you feel the same way. If you need to call somebody who's been on your chicken list or something that you've been avoiding, do that first, and the rest of the day just flies. And when I re-listened this month to Brian's time management strategy, it made me realize how often I'm terrible at this multitasking, which means I'm not as productive as I could or should be. So I've been really working on finishing a task. So if the phone rings, guess what? I've got something called voicemail. I let it just go to voicemail now. There's no sense of urgency that I have to pick up the phone if it can go to voicemail if I'm in the midst of a very serious project, which happens a lot, especially with the university. So I think if we all make a decision to write your list before you go to bed, and when you wake up in the morning, you look at that list, and you've already determined what are the top priority income-producing tasks that are a must-do. And the should-dos will wait till after the must-dos. So journal every day. And I started doing this because I was not doing this, and he suggested, and what I do is when you open the spiral notebook, on the left side, I'm writing my 10 priority goals. In other words, when are you going to hit a certain rank, or how many people you're going to sponsor this month, or what is your income going to be, and where are you going to go? 10 goals on the left side, and the right side of the spiral notebook is obviously all the tasks that I have to get done in a day with the priority A through E. And, of course, I actually try not to even put stuff on my list that could be delegated or eliminated, which is even more important. So I just love this. And, it's interesting how I was having a conversation with one of my good friends and business partners last night, and he was overwhelmed with the demands that they're making on him at work. He was hired. He increased the sales in his company by 40%. And the reward he's getting is, okay, now we want you to increase it an additional 10%. So he's working longer hours for no more pay. I mean, the pay hasn't changed. He increased sales 40%. Now they're pushing him to work even more hours to increase it to 50%. And he's fed up. He's starting to realize that Zango is his way out. So hopefully you're listening because you also are looking for a better way. And in light of that, and if you think about the magic of a caterpillar who eventually turns into a butterfly, and if you have not yet accomplished your goals, both family, financial, etc., just know that we're all born with greatness. Every single person can learn the skills that they need so they can live life as it should be. So we just love doing these millionaire mindset calls. We hope you appreciate them and find them helpful. It would be really helpful if you sent an email to me at Sandi, with an I, S-A-N-D-I, at sandyanded.com, Sandi at sandyanded.com, to let me know that you do find these helpful, valuable, and that we should continue them, because I love doing them, and I know those of you who are participating love to participate. But here's what I'm going to request for next year. I would like more and more people to step up to contribute, even if it's just a couple minutes of what your aha moment was going through the next series, which is Business Success Mastery. So do email me as well that you'd like to participate. I'll put the assignment out probably January 1, because we're going to have the call, obviously, towards the end of the month. But I want more and more people to participate, because those who participate will grow faster. So isn't that the purpose of everything? And, of course, at Zango University, our mission is, one by one, no one left behind. So if you have a dream that still is yet to be realized, we're here to help you every step of the way. So God bless, happy, healthy, joyous holiday season for all. And with that, I'm going to say good night. And thanks, Mark and Donna, for joining us as usual. Bye for now.